welcome to Clowning Around again with me, Stroud. I hope you're well. And of course, I hope, lovely listeners and lovely viewers, that you have found some time to laugh, to think with kindness, and indeed to play. Now, I did promise you, did I not, that I was only going to be chatty to awesome, amazing, awe-inspiring human beings. Well, let me tell you, lovely people, this week is no exception. We have just been giggling, chatting. And yes, just so you know, I do know this person as well. I'll tell you more about that as we go through the podcast. So without further ado, this week we're going to be clowning around again. We're going to be clowning around again, money, with the brilliant Catherine Morgan. Hello, lovely soul.
I have never been so excited to be on this show today. Thank you so much for having me, Em.
You are so welcome. It is, I was really excited and just getting to chat to you. I was like, yeah, we get to chat about all things funny. We get to do all these kind of things, and you are awesome. Now, my lovely listeners and viewers, they're quite a curious lot, and they always like to know, where in the world are my guests? So where are you today?
I am in sunny Jersey, not Jersey, USA, Jersey Channel Islands. So this is tiny little, very interesting island that's like 9 by 5 miles long in the kind of bay of, tucked in between like the northern part of France. If you were to draw a line straight down from the coast of the UK all the way down, that's where I live. And if you were to draw a line from the west side of the island, which is where I live, I'm on the west of the island. West is best, as they say over here in Jersey. Directly west out to the sea, you would keep going until you hit America. So it's a very windy island. It's a beautiful historic island. The island was occupied by the Germans in the war. So there's lots of history over here. And it's just a beautiful, very safe little haven that I bring my 2 boys up over here. So that's where I'm joining from today.
I can always say, I think, and I think I'm on episode 200 something plus, right? You're the first person that I've had that's been in Jersey. I don't know how many people live in Jersey, but I'm not actually that surprised, to be honest, if it's 9 miles by 4.
Yeah, there's like 125,000 people who live here.
And is Jersey bigger than Guernsey?
Yeah, it is. There's quite a lot of like rivalry between Jersey and Guernsey. Like if you've interviewed someone in Jersey, don't go interview someone in Guernsey.
Already not doing it. Already, I'm now grateful for the insider knowledge. I'm going to instantly scrap off the head of tourism that I had on next week's show. So of Guernsey, let's get rid of him. I didn't have him really. But if you want to come on, please do. Good. Well, I'm glad you're in Jersey. And is the world treating you well? Have you had a good week so far?
I think I'm on day 3, although it feels like day 53 of the summer holidays, navigating 2 teenage boys. So I'm feeling like a very strong woman today, having navigated 3 days already of the summer holidays.
I mean, hero is the appropriate word. And everybody listening who has children, had children we all feel it. I feel it. Indeed, I was lucky enough, I was away last week with my boy, and actually tomorrow he goes to his dad's, and then I have like 3 weeks without said son. I love him, but I'm also really grateful. It's like, how long is the summer holiday? How long is they?
7 weeks.
And it shouldn't be a shock to any of us. It shouldn't be a shock to any of us. It happens every summer. Every parent says that. But yet we still go, holy moly, that's a long time. Anyhow, we're not here to talk about time. Although maybe we will. Oh, that sounds deep already. We are going to be planning around money. Now, Catherine, I went very serious then. Everybody knows that I always like to ask all of my guests a series of questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, now I need you to picture the scene. We know that you are very used to standing on big global stages, sharing your knowledge and expertise. So there you are, standing on stage. The audience has sat down. They've got their lattes, their iced lattes, and a couple of them have a couple of glasses of wine, because why not? They're sitting down. There is smoke floating around everywhere. Don't know why there's smoke. There's a beautiful big screen behind. It says your name, and then you're sitting down resplendently on this big sofa that we've just created. And then the small little host appears with something in her ear going, get on and ask the first question, will you? The audience gives a round of applause. And the first question is, what does money mean to you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, what a question.
I know, right?
What a question to be the first question. I feel like this is the deepest question on the planet. Like, what does money mean to you? And it's so interesting that you've asked this question to me, because this is the exact question that I ask when I'm on that stage. But the way that I ask it is like this, Em. Are you ready? So I want you to imagine that I have just given you $1 million or £1 million. You are financially set. You paid your mortgage off. Your son is financially secure for the rest of his life. He can go through uni. He can do what he wants. You bought him his first car. You go on beautiful holidays every year. And the question I want to ask you is, how do you feel to receive that £1 million?
Hmm. It's a nice feeling. And I love the fact that you've turned the question back on me. It's the first time this has ever happened. It's almost like you do your own podcast and coach people. I mean, imagine it. It's awesome. Imagine that. Imagine that. Well, no, it feels lovely. And being here as the portal for everybody listening and watching, I think there's a calming that goes on within my body when you say that. There's a safety and a security. And then there's a whole, holy moly, that's cool.
Yeah, I love that. And what's interesting is how you're describing like the feeling, like it brings a calmness into my body. Like it is a physical feeling. Money can represent a very physical reaction, and for some people that can be calm, it can be peace, it can be freedom, and it can also be fear and guilt and shame of, well, how come I get to have this money when there's other people struggling in the world? Where are the strings attached? What have I got to do in return? Why is she giving me this money?
I had no
Maybe a bit of
problem with you giving it to
suspicion.
me, by the way. That didn't cross my mind. I was fine with it. Yeah,
We know each other way too well.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But it is interesting that the way that we respond or behave to money is really a reflection of what money means to us based on our lived experiences, based on things that have influenced us in the world, things that are generationally have been passed down through the family cycles. And, I'm sure we'll be diving into this subject today, but that question, what does money mean to you? I think it's like money is a really misunderstood character in everybody's lives. Everyone assumes it's about the numbers, the spreadsheets, and really it's got nothing to do with the money at all. Money is basically a mirror reflection of how you feel about yourself. And so how you felt in that question of how do you feel to receive is a really good place to start, because often the way that we feel to receive can then be mirrored in the way that we feel to receive money or compliments. Like if I said to you, your hair looks beautiful today, like you just like the style of it and the color and the cut, like so beautiful. You might be tempted to go, well, actually, I need a cut. And
I mean, I
thanks for
really do. It's
commenting, but
about to go
actually,
blonde again because I'm about to go do my
in the
show at Edinburgh.
grays, or like,
Yeah,
like we'll start to downplay it, or we'll start to go, thanks. And actually, your hair looks really nice too. Like, have you just had it colored? Yours looks great. And we end up like feeling that we have to give something back because actually we're pushing away that feeling of love because of what we make it mean to receive love. And very often money is just a mirror reflection of love. Love and money are so intertwined because it's about being in relationship, and being in relationship is all about being centered in love, and love with yourself and love for other people. So the way that we receive money, the way that we hold money, how long are we allowed to give ourselves permission to actually keep hold of it, is really about how much we give ourselves permission to hold on to love for ourselves, and how much permission we give to give money. Giving money. Lots of people are very graceful, they're very generous with giving their money to other people because it feels easier to do that than it does to give back to our own needs and for ourselves. So it's a really deep question. What does money mean to you? I'm so glad you asked it.
and so with all of that, and there was massive insight on that. For you right now, when you think about what money really means to you, does your natural response go, it means love?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on the day you ask me, if I'm really honest. One of the things that I think about, the words relationship, like being in relationship with yourself, relationship with others, is so much of that relationship piece is driven by our own state of being, our state of minds, our sense of well-being, our sense of worthiness for ourselves. And quite frankly, for a 44-year-old woman going through perimenopause, some days that can be sky high, other days it can be drop in the ocean. Like, I think our state of being is the most important thing to talk about when it comes to money, because when we can come at that conversation from a place of feeling resourced and resilient and strong, we can pretty much navigate anything that is going on around money, whether that is economic situations that is making us feel very uncertain, or whether that's a very fruitful period in our lives around money. Money's very seasonal.
Mm.
You know, it's incredibly seasonal. There are times when you think, what the fuck? Like, suddenly a year ago, I had all this money coming in and now nothing. Like, what the fuck? And we think it's about ourselves, and it's got nothing to do with ourselves in reality. And it's got a lot to do with circumstances and things that we cannot control and we try and control. And I think having this like resourced nervous system, having a state of mind or a state of being that is really just centered in love and strength and resilience, I think that makes the biggest difference.
I love that. Thank you. And the audience are also loving that. They're sipping their wine and their lattes and they're like, oh, so pleased that Catherine's here. And, you know, and the producer obviously loved it because they just billowed a bit more smoke after you finished there. Who knows why, but that was excellent. What song is Money?
Oh my gosh. When I knew you were going to ask this question because I listened to your episodes before, and I have an entire, I have like 20 playlists of different tracks. And whenever I'm like, when I'm working with clients or I'm creating programs or I'm doing talks on stages, I always spend a lot of time curating music around money. And I think everyone like expects, you know, the ABBA songs, you know, money, 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 like it's the
Mm.
typical songs.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm going to get a bit nerdy here, right? I think money doesn't have one song. I think money is like the soundtrack to your life. And I think if you think of money like there's a principle in therapy actually called parts work. And the theory is that there are different parts of us that show up. And it can be the happy part, the playful part, the wounded part, the protector part. Like there's many parts of us that show up depending on where we are in our cycle and what our kids are doing, right? Where the moon is and all of those different things. So sometimes if I'm in a really bad mood or I'm feeling really anxious about money, then my protector part comes out. My protector part is called Elvis. And,
Obviously.
you know, obviously, and he struts in, you know, all rhinestones and certainty. And he's telling me to be careful and, you know, don't go above yourself. And who do you think you are? And, you know, he's frightened on my behalf and he's trying to protect me. Right. So maybe that might be Suspicious Minds.
I love
We're
it.
caught in a trap. I can't walk out.
We feel belong together, suspicious minds. I love it. And I will make sure that Suspicious Minds, which I don't think it is added to the Clowning Around podcast, which of course is available for everybody to download on Spotify. And trust me, Catherine, when I say it's an eclectic collection of songs, and I must admit, I was like, when I was thinking about you and asking that, I was like, I did not expect Elvis and Suspicious Minds. So I'm grateful for that element of surprise. And also I heartily enjoyed hearing you sing Elvis. It was joyful. Question number 3, not that anybody cares. The audience are clapping. They're like, oh, what's next going to come from Catherine? It's like she's an expert around money. Who knew? If money was a country, what country would it be? Obviously, you're talking to a clown, so it can be made up.
I think it has to be made up. I don't think there is a single country on the planet that money would represent. Because it, you know, if money is about being in relationship, I don't think I don't think there is. I mean, there are some great countries that have some great principles around money. Like Switzerland is a great example of a country. My best friend lives in Switzerland. They have some really great ways where they collectively use money in a really positive way. But I think overall, money doesn't feel like a country that actually really exists. It's almost like the land of Oz, you know, it's like everyone's handed this yellow brick road and we're told that if you follow this yellow brick road all the way to the end, you'll reach this great and powerful wizard who's finally going to sort everything out. And then you get there and he's just a bloke behind a curtain with a smoke machine. And
Spoiler alert, sorry if you've never seen Wizard of Oz there, kids. Really
God, I'm
soz.
so sorry if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people in the world have, but I'm just so awkward. Might have to add that on the notes. Spoiler, if you've never seen Wizard of Oz, don't listen.
Don't listen. Watch for the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But it's all of that power is money. money and power are very intertwined. And also traditionally, money has been about white men holding wealth. And I don't say that from a discriminatory perspective or from any judgment, but in a tradition, in our society, wealth is made by men and women are the caregivers, right? And I think when it comes to the conversation of wealth building and investment, so those kind of things have almost been like, well, that's not for us. Like that's just for a certain population of people. That's for people who are rich and wealthy and already have money. And so we don't have those conversations. And I think money and power are so intertwined that we feel like we need to be like the wizards and have all the tools and have all the answers. But actually, in reality, children do not learn about money at school. So they think they've got the yellow brick road sorted and figured out, but actually, really, they don't, because they don't even know where to start with that yellow brick road. And they end up going off onto maybe a red brick road or a green brick road. And so I don't know. I feel like money is this very mystical thing. People think that there is a magic solution or an answer to, have loads of money in our bank accounts and then suddenly we'll be happy. And we give so much of our personal power away to this mystical thing that everyone's trying to figure out, when actually in reality, I would love to see a world where we don't give that power away to money. What would a world look like if we didn't make everything about money? We send our kids to school to learn subjects so they can get good grades, so they can get a good job, so they can earn money, so that they can use that money to buy a house, so they can use that money to pay for bills. And it just goes on and on and on. Everything's always this pursuit of money, when in reality, most people are trying to get away from the pressures of money. They're trying to get away from the power that money has in their lives.
And you're
So
right. It's really true, because I think in the West, I think there is that pursuit of growth. They're constantly talking about economic growth. Businesses are like, how are we going to grow? And it takes real brave leadership, I think, for somebody to sort of say, actually, you know what? We're at an optimum level. We don't need to grow more. Let's stay here. We have enough. We have more than enough. And I think it's interesting,
yeah.
when you do the research into where's the happiest people, strange enough, none of those people are obsessed or driven only by money. In fact, far from it. They have enough. But actually what they've realized, and all of the research says, it's like actually this sort of fixation that we have in the West about money and wealth and everything else, actually it's at what cost? And quite often when you move away from the business world and you go more into the creative world and people that are driven by passion as opposed to profit, it's really interesting. I remember there was a clown that I was working with, and she could genuinely be extraordinary and earn so much money coming and doing the corporate stuff. Like she had that ability to hold audiences, hold people and things. She just went, why would I want to do that? It literally, like, just the idea of just earning in that way, she just was like, I'm very content. I apply for funding, I get arts council, I do my work, and she lives quite a simple, from an exit, simple life. She's really happy. And it's just
Mm.
that thing of, and I think when we step out of this business world, which obviously I do when I'm in my comedy side and my creative side, actually there are lots of people that aren't always driven by the we've got to earn more cash. Like, for example, my missus is an artist and she left the commercial art world because it didn't align with her values. So she was selling art for big amounts of money and then she left it because actually it didn't make her happy. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's something very wise in saying that there isn't a country that money represents. And also that's giving it quite a lot of weight. And actually, if you go back to your first answer, it should be about love. The audience are loving it. We're moving on to our next question. Who makes you think of money, if there's anybody? Who makes you think of money?
My grandmother, she died a couple of weeks ago. So she's really at the forefront of my mind right now. And she died at 101, which I have no idea how she got to 101. Like she drank like a fish and smoked like a chimney. Like she just lived the most incredible life. And she taught me a lot about resourcefulness.
Mm.
And she taught me a lot about resilience. This is somebody who grew up during the war. She she met my granddad at a dance. He was actually just sent back from Changi. He was in the Changi prisoner of war camp in the Second World War. He survived. Another great example of resilience in my family.
Mm.
He survived, came out weighing 5.5 stone. He got shipped out to Australia, then got shipped back to the UK, and he was in this home in Hertfordshire recovering. And he would jump on his push bike and he would cycle to Watford. And it was in Watford at this like town hall that he met my granny. And they fell in love and they got married and they had 5 children. And when she was on holiday with the children in Cornwall, my grandfather must have been around 43, 44 years old. He had a sudden heart attack and died and left her with 5 children.
Wow.
And she had to go to work, right? That she didn't have any money. She went to work, and my mum actually had to take care of her younger siblings, and just so much resilience around that generation. And I'm sure for many generations that went through that period in society, you know, so many examples of resilience. And that generation as well, like they'd fix things. You know, if the washing machine break down, they would fix it. They wouldn't just go and replace it and buy it and just frivolously use money. They'd be very carefully considered. Some would say more hoarding in their relationship with money. But what I really noticed about her relationship with money is that she wasn't given money. She worked for it. She was very resilient. She was very caring in the way that she made money. Like she ran a pub for a number of years, and her way of making money was, of course, serving the community, being in a place of service with money. And I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of weeks journaling and thinking about all the lessons and things that she has taught me about money. So
Thank
that's what I've
you.
been thinking about
Yeah,
recently.
and I mean, isn't it interesting? And and what an amazing life to have got to be 101, and as you say,
Yeah.
the stories and the things that you can learn from her take. And I think, and it's a really fascinating thing because, more and more, I think as the world becomes more tech and AI, and I was only reading today how many young people are finding old school, and I put exclamation marks around it, old school things that people like your gran would have done, like sewing and making bedspreads, and they're seeking these old crafts and this old
Yeah.
way of being because actually maybe it was just a little bit better and a little bit simpler. And just this whole idea, and when you think about money, just that thing about if you come back to love, it's about, if you're giving things around you love and attention rather than going, buttons fallen off, throw that away. That sort of disposable way, and I remember I quite often mention him this episode. I did it a long time ago with a guy called Mark, and he was the director of something at the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And one of the things that he said to me, and it's always stayed with me, it's like when people throw things away, where is away?
Mm.
It just means you can't see it, but it's gone somewhere. And I think when you're thinking about your gran, and that whole generation, something would have to be utterly not usable in order, and I think there's something that all of us can learn from her. So what was her name other than Gran or
Yeah,
Nan? What was her name?
Teresa. Yeah,
What?
Teresa. And which is quite funny given that, we have this belief that money doesn't grow on trees and her name's Teresa.
Yeah. She's like that. I think you'll find it does. Little granddaughter of mine. So thank you, Richard. Now, this is a bit of an odd one. If money was an object, what would it be?
Well, my natural answer to this is a mirror.
Mm.
It's going back to what we said at the beginning, that the relationship we have with money is a mirror reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves. And so the mirror, I think, amplifies and shows us how we feel about ourselves and therefore how we behave with money.
Bish bash bosh. The audience are taking a moment to really think about that. And it's like, this is why she's a globally renowned money supporter and coach and expert. This is why Em's talking to her. Very good. What or whom makes you laugh?
Did you say what or him?
No, what or whom makes you laugh?
What or who makes me laugh? You make me laugh
Nice.
so much. I obviously, of course, you going to your shows, seeing your work. And what else makes me laugh? Myself, many times, I make myself laugh most days. My dog, She's pretty hilarious. And her name's Rosie. She's currently sleeping on my feet. She makes me laugh. I love comedian. Like, I love watching Billy Connolly. For me, is like one of my favorite comedians.
Mm.
I love his, and also Michael McIntyre. I just, whenever I'm feeling blue, I always go and put one of those two comedians on, because I just love the way that Michael McIntyre like just relates very normal everyday stuff and just makes it hilarious. Like, have you heard his sketch where he talks about the herb cupboard?
I have. It's so interesting. That is probably one of the most commonly said phrases of things that's made my guests really happy.
No
Yeah,
way.
that particular, there is something about it. But I think, when you kind of look under it, it's people relate to it because it's something that they can see themselves. And I think that's the reason, and he's a kind comic, which is very much where I come from as well. And it's that thing of, it's that simplicity of storytelling, but truth, but kindness. So yeah, I love that one too. And so in this big old world, and the audience are sort of having a little look at Michael McIntyre, putting on their phones, and now they're back focused. Well done, audience. How do you look after you?
Yeah, good question. I would say if you'd asked me this 2, 3 years ago, my answer would have been not very well. And I think over the recent years, and probably because my children have got older, so my roles and responsibilities have changed somewhat. I feel like when we're navigating life, we're navigating so much around our identity, and especially going in your 40s, and especially when you go through perimenopause, it's like suddenly all of a sudden you don't give a shit about what other people think, and you start to really see parts of yourself where you're like, actually, I think spending some time by myself is important, and having some play dates is important. And so I think nowadays how I look after myself is I have a lot of rituals and routines that I live by, and not habits. I find habits very masculine, very like do. And if you don't do it one day, you've got to beat yourself up. Like the word rituals and routines just feels like a softer way for me to think about what is going to help to support me to carry a regulated nervous system throughout the day, be able to navigate things, be able to hold a lot of emotion for clients because I do a lot of deep work with clients, be able to hold myself on a stage, be able to hold myself in those times where self-doubt creeps in, because it does. That's what happens. That's life. So in the mornings, I actually journal quite a bit in the mornings. I don't rush. I'm not one of these 5 o'clock in the morning, get up and do loads of exercise. I have a very gentle morning. And 3 times throughout the day, I regularly practice what we call heart breathing, embodied heart breathing, which is essentially where I take a few minutes a day to center into my heart, to bring in love, appreciation, and gratitude from either moments in that day or things that just want to come into my world. Maybe that's love and appreciation for my gran, for example, or love and appreciation for this conversation today. And I just bring it into my body. I imagine that my heart is beating all of that love and gratitude and appreciation all the way around my body. And then I get up and do something. I'll then crack on with some work or whatever I'm going to do for the day. And I do that 3 times a day. So I'll often do that in the morning when I start work. I'll do it midday just to reset my nervous system. And then I'll do it again at the end of the day, just as I'm like closing the laptop down and parking that CEO hat and moving into mum mode. So I've got that real clear line of, right, now it's time to move on to something else. And for me, whilst that doesn't necessarily sound like taking care of myself, it does, it takes care of myself every day. And then I bring in other pieces, like I've just joined a singing group and a dance group, and I'm in Cinderella Panto this year, and I was in an opera singing thing on stage a few months ago.
I'm loving all of these things.
I haven't even told you yet, Em.
No, I'm like, Cinderella Panto in Jersey, I am coming.
It's just fun, And when I was sitting with this question recently, like, what brings me fun? What brings me fun? And I think as a parent, quite honestly, we do spend a lot of time running around the children and dropping the kids off to various things, and life gets busy. And it's very easy to just go, life's too busy right now, I'll do that another time. And I sat with this question. I was like, no, I'm going to do something for myself now. I'm not going to wait. And I just remembered how much joy music brings into my life. I love singing. I love just putting music on and dancing around the kitchen and being crazy. And so I thought, I love music. I love singing. And little Elvis in my voice was like, "Bud, you can't sing because all your brothers and sisters used to tell you that your voice is terrible. And actually, I have a really good voice." And I went to this audition a few weeks ago and they were like, "Come and join Cinderella." So I was like, okay.
You're like, okay, I think you'll find that my voice is very good. Thank you very much. Siblings, you can do one. Love you all, but do one. And it's interesting because my penultimate question is actually, how do we play and how do you play? And I think you've answered that in the sort of in what you're doing in terms of the singing, and it's so fascinating to me how many people, because of another voice at a certain point in their life, do not allow themselves to connect with that part of them joy. I remember I did a keynote up in Glasgow, and it was to a room of CEOs, and there was 70 odd of the biggest and the best CEOs in Scotland, and then there was me chatting all things, laughing, thinking, playing, right? And I remember there was this one guy, and I said to him, and I was just like, do you enjoy singing? He's like, well, I do, but nobody else does, so I don't do it. And I was like, well, next time you're in your car, why don't you just let yourself sing? And I took a punt and I was like, let me guess, chicken or bit of meatloaf? And he went, how do you know I love meatloaf? And I was like,
God, I love meatloaf.
I was like, bit of a guess. Anyway, he messaged me, and then he did a whole post on this on LinkedIn, and he messaged me and he just said, I had a journey yesterday. I put meatloaf on. I sang so loudly. And he went, and it's like, we don't have to wait to play or to have fun, because, as you so beautifully said, it's like so many smart, successful people put that, well, I'll do that when. And actually, we've only got now. And it's the same thing as holding the mirror up about money and looking at it, even if it scares you, and, pre me meeting you, it used to scare me, but now it doesn't scare me. And it's that thing. Yeah, by the way, kids, yeah, I've worked with her. She's very good. I highly recommend. But it's this whole beautiful thing of allowing yourself those kindnesses and not just being on the treadmill of everything, right?
And the two words you said there that are most significant is waiting and allowing. They're almost two opposite, I was going to say energy, like emotions, states. Because when you're waiting for anything, when you're waiting for something, it's really because we're not giving ourselves permission. Why are we not giving ourselves permission? Because we don't feel deserving, because we don't feel confident enough, because of imposter syndrome, because somebody else is telling us you're not ready to do this right now. And I think there's a real power and a soft power, not a hard power, but a softness in saying to yourself, I'm going to do it now. And even if that is just 2 steps towards, maybe it's not the entire track of Meatloaf, but Out of Hell or Paradise by a Dashboard, like you're saying. It might be, I'm just going to listen to the chorus of that song, or I'm just going to listen to the opening verse. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. But there's such a power in moving from that place of waiting to permission. I'm going to give myself permission to just do it anyway.
Yeah, and to do it now because it feels better. And so, final question on the what hasn't been quickfire round of questions, because it didn't need to be, because it's my podcast, so I get to make the rules, so it's fine. The audience have nearly finished their wine and their iced lattes though, so they're like, okay, yes,
we've got to hurry up.
Yeah, better hurry up, and they've run out of smoke. There's no more smoke billowing. They're like, boom, nothing comes out. They're like, yeah. So the final one. And I think I know the answer to this, but what have you been thinking about in the last couple of days? What's really been in your head?
Yeah, I have a very busy mind. Honestly, if you could see my mind in just 2 days, like, it's craziness, really. I'm very creative. I'm very reflective. I'm very philosophical. So many things have been across my mind the last couple of days. My gran definitely has been one of them. I've had some beautiful conversations with women recently, actually, about some very dark subjects. People messaging me about just coming out of financially abusive relationships. So that's been on my mind the last couple of days. Some real heavy subjects, but just being really honest with you. I think when you put a spotlight on money, lots of things can come up around money. So holding lots of space for that and kind of pondering as I do around what can we do about this? How can we support women to have a bigger voice around these kind of subjects? I've been having some beautiful dog walks and conversations with local women who are running businesses about collaborations and, how do we live in a bit more humanity right now, where we've got AI just taking over the world and making us fearful about our jobs. And some beautiful conversations with my youngest son, who's navigating the dynamics of friendships when you're 12, 13 years old. And I just love the joy and awe of deep conversations. I think
I don't
from this
think my
today.
listeners will have picked that up at all. I think, there's been nothing deep and profound here at all.
My apologies. My apologies. Not sorry about
Yeah,
that. But that's just
no.
how my
It's
mind
everybody
works.
comes in going, oh, this is going to be a funny podcast. And then it gets deep as well. Who knew? It's almost why I've got laughing and thinking on my arm. Imagine. Well, the audience have now given you a massive round of applause. They're standing up. They're like, it's amazing. And they've all just disappeared back to where they are. And so it's now just back me in London and you obviously in Jersey, the smallest island, one of them, which is lovely. 9 miles. Who knew? I didn't. Now, I have one final question because I'm aware of your time and of course my good listeners' time. If somebody is listening to this and they've never really thought about their relationship with money before, it's just been something that is there. It's just there. What would be one kind way for them to have the courage to pick up the mirror? Is there one kind thing that you would say, this is a really lovely way to start that process of looking at your relationship? What would it be?
I think the kindest thing that you could do for yourself as you hold up that mirror is to imagine that you're holding that mirror up to yourself the first day that you were born onto this planet. Because when we're born, we are born into a world where we are not judging ourselves. We're not being judged by others. We are just being seen as beautiful, wonderful, miraculous, magical human being. And we're not conditioned. Some would say we have been through epigenetics and DNA. And even aside from that, even if we have been born with a blueprint, we are still born in that very moment where we feel truly worthy of anything. And I think if you were to hold that mirror up and look at yourself through that lens of complete and utter worthiness, that you can do anything, be anyone, anything is possible, I think the decisions that you would make around maybe some of the questions that are sitting in your mind right now about money would be very different.
I love that. How can people find you, follow you, and all of that good stuff? Where do they go?
Well, as a podcast listener, you can come hang out with me on my podcast. It's Not About the Money. I also have a book with the same title if you want to dive a little bit deeper, or you can come and follow me on my website. We've got various resources and things on there, which is catherinemorgan.com.
Awesome. I will make sure that all of those are put, when I say my fabulous team will make sure that all of them in the notes, because I don't do that, because then it wouldn't happen. I knew it was going to be joyful and awesome because you are joyful and awesome. Thank you so much, lovely soul, for coming on Clowning Around again with me and Stroud. I have indeed loved it, and I knew I would. So thank you very much for coming on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Now, in case it wasn't really clear, so I am going to be very open with you, dear listeners of Clowning Around again. Now, I've spent a lot of my life looking at various different parts of my world. So the emotional side, the spiritual side, to a certain degree, the physical side, the knowledge side. I'm talking through my book here as I say all these things. And I definitely had a blind spot around money, for sure. And I think it was maybe about a year ago that I was introduced to Catherine through a mutual friend. And I did some one-to-one work with her. And it has been transformative, because I think it's that thing, isn't it, that when you pay attention to the thing that perhaps for whatever reason you've got a thing about, when you do start holding up that mirror, and obviously she held up the mirror for me, it's amazing what you can then see and what you can then feel, and then how different your relationship is. Like, my relationship with money is completely different since I've worked with her. I'm in a very different mindset about it. I have some tools. I have some practical tools, which are super useful that she helped me with. But the tools were the sort of the nice thing to have at the end, if that makes sense. Because, as I'm sure we all do, right? We can all have all the tools, but if we haven't changed our heart and our mindset, the tools are just something that we'll just drop, or we'll go, but we don't really engage, and then therefore nothing really changes. And what I've noticed is that since having worked with her, Yes, I use the tools, but it's the mindset that has changed. Am I still a work in progress about it? Of course, yeah, because nothing shifts without consistency, and nothing ever shifts without continually, that's a new word there, but nothing ever shifts without continuing to look at it and to continue to hold up the mirror to it. But I'm really grateful that she came on the pod. She genuinely is one of the top people in the world around money. And so if you've had a block about money, and you might not want to do one-to-one work with her, that's cool. You might not want to have that level of care and attention. That might just not feel right. But do, read her book, listen to her podcast, because I think what she does, which I think is why she's so successful, is that she brings the heart and the head. And I think when you bring both of them together in a space around something that can evoke, well, for me anyway, shame and regret and fear and guilt, and lots of other stuff, lots of other words and emotions sort of emerged as I was working with her. But I think when you work with somebody and they have the head and the heart, I think that's where the magic happens. And like I say, you might not be able to be in a place where you're working with somebody like that on a one-to-one basis. But I urge you, in terms of your own relationship with money, is your head and your heart connected with it? When you saw that this was an episode around money, did you go, or did you go, yeah, that's cool? And I know loads of people have a really genuinely healthy relationship with money, and I applaud you. Well done. But I also know that there's tens of thousands, if not millions of people that don't have a great relationship with money. And the biggest gift that I hope you take from listening to this podcast is when you give your relationship with money some kind attention and some kind love, it's extraordinary how much stuff can change. There you go. Another episode of Pounding Around again with me and Stroud. Do make sure that you find some time this week to laugh, think, and play, because it does make you feel better. Have a really good week. I'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye for now.